Hello. Now that I've transitioned to using a wood-burning stove on my campouts, I wanted to have a backup alcohol stove that I could take with me, that I could use in case of emergency, if I was in a spot that there just wasn't any wood, I was too lazy or too tired to start a fire, whatever the case may be. So I started working on what I call a Miller Lite or a Miller Time stove. Basically, I had picked up some of these bottles in hope of making a fancy piece stove that uses the stadium bottle, and they don't sell those stadium bottles in my area, and I was hoping this would work in its place, but of course it is the wrong size, so that didn't work for me. As I started looking at what I wanted out of the stove, basically I don't plan to use it, and I hope I come back with it being weighing the same and being unused. With that in mind, I wanted something incredibly simple to use, that I didn't have to keep track of a lot of parts. I didn't want to have something get lost or forgotten or whatever. Everybody's heard that saying, for want of a nail, a shoe was lost, for want of a shoe, a horse was lost, and so forth it goes until the war was lost. And in the war and battle against the cold, I didn't want to lose that because I forgot a penny, or I forgot a hose, or I forgot a stand, or whatever the case may be. So this is an incredibly simple stove to use. It basically works as a wicking stove and holds, I put up to 3 ounces in the stove. I'm not sure how much it will hold, but it will burn down to nothing. It works very well using the Emberlit as a windscreen, so I've used it that way, and so this is the stove, and this is how I made it. Okay, so let's get started. So this is a can that has been emptied. I've refilled it with water because it being solid helps a lot with the scoring and the sanding, and I usually just go around it a little bit with some sandpaper, or excuse me, some steel wool, going around like this just to score it up a little bit, clean it up. Not really worried about taking all the paint off, but just making sure I have a clean surface, because this is going to go inside of the bottom piece. Once I have that done, I can start scoring. I do take and put water in here, so if I do cut through it as I'm scoring, I don't get a spewing geyser coming out of it. But this allows me to have a very clean score all the way around. And so I just put it against there, and I usually go around at least a couple times. And you can see how that gives a very nice clean score line. Because I don't have one specifically cut for this, I'm going to just sort of hold these two together, and that will give me about the right position on the top. So I don't have an exact measurement on some of this, but let me finish this scoring. Okay, as you can see, we've gone we're about a half an inch up here, probably a full inch from this rim, and we have 2 nice score lines. Okay, from there I'm going to empty the water out of this. And I did have that mark, so I knew that this was the can that was right. And I do have a water pad here that will absorb into it. Now I just pretty much want to separate that out, and I don't really care too much about having a nice clean line right now. So I'm just going to punch a hole in it and just make sure I don't crease out to where these 2 lines are. Now these edges are very, very sharp, so might be a good idea to use gloves if you are not used to working with this, or just be very careful. I'm going to cut this down right to that score line, and once I reach there, then I can just peel this off, and that gives me a nice clean score. And I'll do the same thing on the top here, except that, so I get up here, just nick that again, and instead of coming up, I'm going to try to get it to peel towards the inside. This sort of gets both edges going in the directions I want them to go, because this top lip needs to go inside of that bottom lip. Okay, I guess one tool that I didn't mention before is I take then a full can, this has never been opened, and I'm going to use this as a plunger to just stretch out this bottom piece. So I don't want to go very far onto there because I'll have to fight it off. But just the air resistance that's in there, and then slowly pulling that off. And I'm only going on, you know, 1/8 of an inch to begin with. And I'll just keep working it until I can go more and more. And I'll work it around in a circle. Just to keep stretching that top edge until I can basically slide this in, you know, 1/4 of an inch or so easily. And having this full allows this to happen. If this top can was empty already, it just wouldn't go in here at all. If you try to do this too fast, you're either going to crush this bottom piece as you take it apart, or you're going to split it by putting it in there too fast. Okay, as you can see, it's going in and out a lot smoother now. Another thing that I'm going to do real quick while we have this, so I'm just going to sand this outer edge and get rid of any rough edge that might be there. And as soon as I am comfortable that these are going to go together smoothly, which I'm not quite sure of that yet. So I'm going to work this just a little bit more. Okay, check that again. Because I really don't want to have to fight once I have everything about ready to go on. Once I have the fiberglass in here and everything else, that's going to be a big pain. Okay, I'm pretty sure that is all going to slide in there. Okay, so the next step is I just took some of this fiberglass cloth and I cut a piece that was basically big enough to completely wrap this and go down into the base. This is our wicking material, so it's going to pull the alcohol from the bottom of the stove up. So I'd really like to be able to wrap it completely, and that looks like it's going to be able to do that. The other thing that I did is I just took this contractor cloth or fabric here, and I cut a piece out of it that just is the same size as this lid. And that I'm going to push up on from the inside to hold everything together. And then the third thing that I will use here is this insulation. I save that till the very last because I want to touch it as little as possible. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this netting, put it in the middle, this contractor fabric, put it in the middle of my fiberglass netting. And I'm going to just push that straight down into the lid. And I just took a little piece of PVC pipe here, and I just push that down, and then I work my way all the way around the edges to get that in there, so that that's a nice top to it. From there, I'll take some insulation, shove it down into that neck, and then basically just fill this bowl with it so that it remains in good contact with the bottom of the can. Okay. Actually, looks like I've got maybe even a little too much here, so I'm just going to trim this up a little bit. It's not going to wick better by having too much in there, and it will be easier to put it together if I don't have quite so much. Okay. I'm going to take all of this, sort of pack it down a little bit, and with just a piece of tape. This will hold it together while I'm putting it together, but then we'll dissolve at least the glue on it as soon as the alcohol hits it. So at this point I'm going to take just a little bit of this high temperature silicone gasket material, and I'm going to run it towards the bottom of this base and just make a nice thin layer all the way around. And this will just make sure that everything stays sealed. Where I want to carry alcohol inside of this, I don't want it leaking into my backpack. Okay. That gives me a nice edge all the way around. And then comes the moment of truth. We put this all together and hope that it fits as well as it did during our initial setting. And it's going together nicely. Okay, so now this is a tough point here because we want to push down on this. We don't really want the lid on it because we want the air to be able to come out, but we don't want to push down on that cloth itself and push it down into there. So I'm really cupping my hand and just pushing on the can itself. Okay. I'm going to call that good. I wouldn't necessarily call these stoves the answer to a backup for a wood burning stove, but it's certainly an answer, and pretty good. I get a boil off of 2 cups of water in about 12 minutes. Certainly not the fastest stove, but again, I hope not to use it. The fact that I don't have to carry anything with it makes it a good alternative. I did learn a number of things. You saw me make one with the contractor's fabric. First couple I made, I actually just cut a piece of the aluminum that I had removed from here and used that as the disc in here. This was the first stove I made, and I got it a little bit loose, and it works all right, but it sunk a little bit. So the next one I made a little bit larger, and it holds up there well, but I actually found both of these very constricting, and the flames are not near as high as these last 2 stoves that I made with the contractor fabric. In addition, I made the final ones just a little bit taller. You can see that I moved up. This one was very hard to get together. Probably spent about 20 to 30 minutes just getting it in, and I did get a little buckle. This one was much easier and went together pretty well. Those last 2 went together very simply, very easily. So if I were to make another one, given the height of the stove, I actually might make it another ½ an inch taller as it is, just to move that flame up a little closer to the pots. I don't know if I'll make another one. I have one more Miller Lite can, but I would have to get more if I was going to use that as a plunger or just try to do it by itself. So overall, I hope you enjoyed this, and if it gives you any ideas or you have any feedback, please let me know.